mother gets up from her seat and hurls towards Diamond's mother and pushes her. The two moms at one point fighting.
This is Vashon Flowers, in court facing a first-degree murder charge for the killing of his wife, Jamie Thomas Flowers. Authorities say that on a quiet Sunday morning in Muskegon Heights, Michigan, a simple disagreement between Vashon Flowers and his wife had turned deadly. The 46-year-old husband had returned home with a pack of cigarettes despite the fact that both he and Jamie had recently quit, and Jamie was not happy about it. This had led to a serious argument, after which Vashon had stormed out of the house. When he returned several hours later, he kicked in the door, approached his wife, and shot her 4 times in the chest. Jamie Thomas Flowers died on the floor of her home, while Vashon fled the scene before finally surrendering to police.
Prosecutors say Jamie Thomas Flowers was shot multiple times by her husband, Vashon Flowers, and one of those shots was at close range. And it happened while the victim's daughter and grandson hid in a bedroom inside the Muskegon Heights home.
In court, prosecutors described a volatile man with a history of violent behavior. Vashon Flowers was also charged as a habitual offender due to multiple prior felony convictions and had been denied bail at his arraignment.
The victim in this case had been shot multiple times by Mr. Flowers. At least one of those appears to be a point-blank, close contact injury.
But the most explosive moment came during the victim impact statements. As the victim's young daughter took the stand, her brother, London Thomas, Jamie's adult son, lunged. Jumping clearly over the podium where he was sitting, London attempted to lay his hands on the man who had taken the life of his mother. The courtroom erupted, with deputies running to immediately restrain him. Once the courtroom was cleared and order restored, sentencing resumed. Vashon Flowers was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Jamie Thomas Flowers. Vashon Flowers was attacked during court proceedings, but that was just one man. What happens when 2 sons charge at their mother's killer? This is Dale Williams, and he is in court, facing charges for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Elizabeth Pledger Stewart. In June of 2017 in Newcomerstown, Ohio, Elizabeth was driving when Dale spotted her on the road. Dale immediately followed her and chased her. Witnesses say he intentionally ran her off the road, causing her vehicle to crash, but that was not all. As Elizabeth lay trapped inside her vehicle, Dale walked up to her and opened fire, shooting her severally until she was dead.
But prosecutors tell me Williams was meticulous in his planning, to the point of choosing the spot where he sat in his van waiting for the victim to drive by on her way to work, even what he wore that day and how he thought it would all end.
The incident was witnessed by a lot of people.
In fact, a lot of people who were driving down to the courthouse to start work that day had seen some of it.
The police officers arrived on scene and immediately arrested Dale, who went with them, without resistance. In court, Dale Williams pleaded guilty and provided his account of the events that led to the murder.
He went in detail about how he lied in wait and he, did this. He made a statement initially that he was trying to save 1 bullet for himself as well, or 1 bullet to point at the police, but he ended up using it all.
But despite the guilty plea, the courtroom remained tense, charged with grief, rage, and the unbearable weight of a life stolen far too soon. And when the sentencing hearing began, the emotional tension finally snapped. As Elizabeth's daughter stepped forward to deliver her victim impact statement, 2 of the victim's sons, Jerome Stewart and Anthony Dees, lunged. Deputies leapt into action trying to separate the men, but the matter was out of control. In a desperate effort to subdue them, Law enforcement had no choice but to deploy tasers in the middle of the courtroom. The hearing came to a halt, with Dale immediately removed from the courtroom for his own protection. The courtroom had to be cleared with the hearing rescheduled while Dale was escorted out of the court for his own safety. But when the court reconvened, the atmosphere hadn't cooled. If anything, it had intensified. This time, Elizabeth's aunt stood to speak.
When we saw him, his face, we felt it was so much emotion due to a flashback of how he just killed my niece.
The judge listened and then handed Dale Williams a sentence of 23 years to life in prison. Outside the courtroom, a family friend was grateful for the judgment.
She did a really good job in the courtroom and making sure that he will never see the light of day again. So we just thank her for that.
But the consequences weren't over. Jerome Stewart and Anthony Dees, the two sons who had charged at their mother's killer in open court, were charged with assault and disruption of court proceedings, and both men were sentenced to 30 days in jail.
Anthony Dees and Jerome Stewart will now be in court on Monday. Right now, they're in the Mahoning County Jail facing assault and contempt of court charges. Their mom was killed in 2017 by her ex-boyfriend, Dale Williams.
They were sentenced to 30 days in jail. Dale Williams was nearly torn apart in court by two of the victim's sons. But what if it's not two men, but a whole grieving family after the killers of a 9-year-old boy? This is Andre Fisher, and beside him stands his nephew, Derek Cummings. Both men are in court, awaiting sentencing for the cold-blooded murder of 9-year-old Shelton Lucas Jr. It was the early morning hours of February 15, 1994, when terror shattered the quiet inside a Washington Estates drive home. Shelton Lucas Jr. and his mother, Charlesie, were asleep on the couch when gunfire ripped through the walls, 35 bullets in total. One of those bullets struck young Shelton in the head. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. Now in court, the Lucas family returned to face the men responsible for the boy's death. During the victim impact statement, Shelton's grandmother held up a photograph of the little boy and reminded the room of the life that was stolen from them and the family that was left broken.
Where they put him, what they did to him.
What happens next is unbelievable.
And that was the exact moment Shelton's father snapped. He lunged at the killers. Deputies rushed to stop him, but they weren't the only ones. Now, other enraged family members joined in the fight. Order was lost. The judge cleared the courtroom and delayed sentencing. But that outburst came at a cost. Shelton's father, Lucas Sr., along with relatives Carlin and Charles Johnson, were all held in contempt of court. The judge sentenced Lucas Sr. to 30 days in jail, while the Johnson brothers received 15 days each. As for Andre Fisher and Derek Cummings, the courtroom eventually reconvened, and they were sentenced to life in prison. Andre and Derek nearly lost their lives in the hands of two relatives, but Jason Stevens didn't even make it to sentencing.
Their anger boils over.
This is Jason Stevens, a 23-year-old man standing before the court, facing charges of armed robbery, kidnapping, and the murder of a toddler in Jacksonville, Florida. In 1997, authorities in Jacksonville responded to a disturbing home invasion call. But what began as a robbery quickly spiraled into something far more horrifying. According to investigators, Jason and a group of accomplices had broken into the home looking to steal some cash and marijuana. But in the middle of the operation, Jason made a decision that would turn this crime into a national headline. He abducted a child from the home, 3-year-old Robert Sparrow III. The child was supposedly taken as some sort of insurance or bargaining chip in case the crew ran into trouble. The moment law enforcement was alerted, a desperate search for Robert began, but hope faded fast. Just days later, the search ended in heartbreak. The toddler's lifeless body was discovered in the trunk of a stolen abandoned vehicle. The case stunned Florida, and when the trial began, the courtroom was packed. And though the family of Robert Sparrow III sat in heavy silence through most of the proceedings, grief and rage have a way of boiling over. And that moment came during recess. Jason Stevens had risen from his seat to sign court documents, a normal routine, but for Robert's family, this was the opening they had been waiting for.
Their anger boils over.
Multiple relatives charged across the room and swarmed Jason as deputies scrambled to intervene. Jason was dragged from the center of the scuffle, bruised and shaken, and forcibly removed from the room for his own safety. Two of Robert's family members, including the father of the dead child, were placed in handcuffs, and the remaining relatives were escorted out.
The little boy's godfather is also hauled away. The murderer is eventually led out of the courtroom. So is the family.
Despite the emotional eruption, the trial resumed in the following days, and when it did, the court showed no mercy. Jason Stevens was found guilty on all counts, and the judge delivered the ultimate sentence, death by electric chair. Jason Stevens was attacked by grieving relatives, but in Madison's case, all it took to set off the victim's father was a smug smile. This is Michael Madison, a 39-year-old man from Cleveland, Ohio, standing in court, facing multiple counts of aggravated murder in the brutal slayings of 3 women. The horror began to unravel when a neighbor reported a foul odor coming from a garage in East Cleveland. What officers found inside would open the door to a nightmare. Hidden in a garbage bag was the decomposing body of a young woman, but that was only the beginning. As investigators combed through the area surrounding Madison's apartment, they uncovered 2 more bodies, also wrapped in plastic, also dumped in horrifying proximity to where Madison lived. The victims were soon identified: 38-year-old Angela Deskins, 28-year-old Shatisha Sheely, and 18-year-old Sherelda Terry. Inside Madison's apartment, police found an apartment consumed by death. The floor was stained with decomposition fluids. Maggots infested the corners, and the air was thick with the unmistakable stench of rot.
There was evidence of decomposition fluid in several parts of the apartment building. There were maggots that were attached to the decomposition fluid. There were some trace decomposition fluid on the walls coming out of the kitchen to the doorway.
In court, Michael Madison sat motionless. His face revealed nothing. Not as the prosecution laid out every gruesome detail for the jury, and not as the photos of bloated bodies and maggot-covered floor.
Same way, at the same place, and in a short time frame. Then he disposed of their bodies. To avoid detection from his crimes, he tied 2 of the victims up with duct tape, placing their legs on each side of their head, and bending the body in half.
But before the court could proceed to sentencing, it was time for the families to speak, to confront the man who had taken everything from them. Sherelda Terry's father took to the stand for his victim impact statement. He began to speak, his voice trembling under the weight of unimaginable grief. And then he turned.
Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown. He's touched our families, taken my child.
He looked Michael Madison square in the eye, and Madison, who was off camera, smirked at him. That smile was all it took. In one swift motion, Mr. Terry lunged across the courtroom. Deputies acted fast. They tackled him before he could get there and restrained him, and he was removed quickly from the courtroom. When order was restored, Judge Nancy McDonnell addressed the court.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being can do to not one, but 3 human beings. It is incomprehensible.
And then she delivered the sentence, death.
Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant Michael Madison on counts 1, 4, and 7.
Madison's smirk almost got him mauled. Now imagine what happens when an entire community watches the killer of 10 black victims stand trial.
Love our kids. We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
This is Peyton Gendron, a 19-year-old standing trial in a New York courtroom, convicted of carrying out one of the most racially motivated mass shootings in recent American history. On May 14, 2022, Gendron left his home in Conklin, New York, armed. He drove over 200 miles in a vehicle packed with ammunition, wearing tactical body armor, and clutching an assault rifle scrawled with white supremacist slogans and the names of previous mass shooters. But this wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. It was premeditated. Gendron's destination was chillingly specific, a Tops-friendly market in Buffalo, located in a predominantly black neighborhood. Authorities later revealed that he had studied the demographics of the area before choosing it. Before the attack, Gendron had published a 180-page manifesto online. In it, he laid out his belief in the Great Replacement theory and his plan to spark a race war. His mission was simple and horrifying: to kill as many black people as possible. At approximately 2:30 p.m., Gendron pulled into the grocery store parking lot and began shooting.
First saw him shooting, he shot a woman, he shot a deacon, he shot another woman, and then he went in the store and started shooting again.
The attack was broadcast live on a streaming platform, turning the massacre into a spectacle of terror. Inside and outside the store, 10 people lost their lives, all of them black. 3 others were injured.
10 people shot dead and 3 more injured after a gunman opened fire at a Tops-friendly supermarket in a predominantly black neighborhood.
When officers arrived, Gendron appeared prepared to end his own life, but law enforcement managed to de-escalate and arrest him before he could pull the trigger on himself. At the press briefing that followed, the sheriff's office didn't mince words. This was a hate crime.
This was pure evil. It was straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community.
This is the worst nightmare that any community can face.
And in the days that followed, the full scope of Gendron's planning stunned the nation. His rifle was etched with racial slurs and the names of mass murderers he admired. He had drawn a detailed map of the grocery store's interior. Every movement had been calculated. In court, the prosecution described his actions clearly, ensuring that the jury and the public grasped the depths of Peyton's hatred.
On May 14th of 2022, this defendant displayed a callous disregard for human life. He drove over 200 miles out of his way with one mission, with one goal: to kill as many black people as possible. During that 3-hour drive, he could have turned around, but he wouldn't be deterred. He was steadfast to accomplish his goal of killing as many black people as possible and starting a race war.
The courtroom was filled with family members of the victims, and many of them addressed the court.
Hello, I'm Dion Elliott. I'm Andre McNeil's brother. Me and Andre are 11 months and 8 days apart. On the 28th, I'll turn 53. On March 8th, he'll turn 54. Peyton, you took this from me. You took the last of my line.
But grief has its breaking point. During one particularly emotional victim impact statement, one of the victim's relatives rushed toward Gendron but was quickly intercepted by deputies.
Love our kids. We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
When given the opportunity to address the court, Peyton apologized to the family of his victims for his actions that day.
I'm very sorry for all the pain I forced the victims and their families to suffer through. I'm very sorry for stealing the lives of your loved ones. I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I shot and killed people because they were black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate. I know I can't take it back, but I wish I could. And I don't want anyone to be inspired by me and what I did.
The apology was a little too late, and when the judge addressed the court, she emphasized on the horrors of that day, fueled by Peyton's hateful actions.
There is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society. There can be no mercy for you, no understanding, no second chances.
And then came the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole.
It is the judgment of this court for your conviction under the first count of the indictment, a domestic act of terrorism motivated by hate in the first degree, an A1 felony, that you be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
While the victim's relative could not get his hands on the man who killed his loved one, in this defendant's case, the family of the victim got their wish. This is Frank DeLeon Jr., a 19-year-old man standing trial for the murder of 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez. It was January 11, 2022, in Houston, Texas, and Diamond Alvarez left her house to walk her dog, a routine neighborhood stroll that should have ended with her safe return home. But someone else had plans that night, someone who had been watching. Frank DeLeon Jr., Diamond's boyfriend, was lying in wait just steps from her house. Authorities would later uncover that the couple had recently argued after Diamond discovered Frank had been unfaithful, and she had made it clear to him that the relationship was over. Frank waited for her and then started shooting. Reports say that she was shot 22 times before he fled the scene. When detectives arrived on scene, they found her body lying on the sidewalk, dead. It didn't take long for them to identify Frank as the prime suspect. He was arrested within days. But if the murder was horrifying, what happened in the courtroom was something no one could have predicted. Because as sentencing approached, the atmosphere inside the courtroom became electric with tension. And then, Diamond's mother took the stand to give the victim's impact statement.
Pure chaos lasted several minutes, and it all happened shortly after the victim's mother gave her impact statement where she called Frank DeLeon Jr. a monster.
But then, she decided not to stay in the stand anymore.
Take a look. Our cameras were rolling as Diamond Alvarez's
deputies immediately intercepted her from reaching DeLeon, but they did not see the uncle's next move coming.
As Diamond Alvarez's mother began walking towards DeLeon, a bailiff holds her back. That's when the situation escalates, with Diamond's uncle jumping in from the gallery and punching DeLeon.
As deputies rushed to stop him and escort DeLeon out of the courtroom, DeLeon's mother jumped into the fray, immediately going for Diamond's mother, with both women tearing into each other. Another family member of Diamond's joins the chaos, and it turns into a full-on brawl in the middle of a courtroom right in front of the judge, with court deputies fighting to regain control. Finally, the deputies were able to restore order in the courtroom, and the hearing was postponed. Later, Diamond's mother spoke outside the courtroom.
That was wrong of me. That was wrong of us, because we're not monsters. But it's so much hate, because I want my daughter back. And what he did was horrible.
Despite the violence, the hearing moved forward. Frank DeLeon Jr. accepted a plea deal, and in exchange for avoiding a trial, he was sentenced to 45 years in prison.